At number 10 spot, we have the water tank of Dapashi. Located in Dapashi, Basundara, I am so sorry if I mispronounced that, lies this innocent looking underground tank to store water around the community. Although this is necessary for any community and serves as a benefit, many locals are actually too afraid to go anywhere near it. Of course, this doesn't mean that they couldn't get their water due to fear. Instead, they would probably just ask someone else to get it for them. But what could stop people from getting a basic necessity like water? It all started with the sounds of crying, shouting, and other strange noises coming from inside of the tank, and it was said that the sounds grew even louder by the nighttime. This is also the time where locals claim that they also see the spirit of a decomposing man standing nearby the tank. Legends say that a group of robbers mugged a man near this water tank, and instead of a quick theft, one of the men accidentally killed the man, so they thought that they could put the body inside of this tank and they locked it. But instead, hours later, they would hear the man struggling for his life inside of the water tank. Soon after, the man would pass and the robbers would get caught. But imagine drinking from this water tank after this incident. Doesn't this kind of remind you of Cecil Hotel a bit? Anyone? At number 9 spot, we have Raniban. Many people know Raniban for their breathtaking views and incredible sceneries, but inside of this nature escape is hidden something dark. Within the jungle of Raniban village, there's this gigantic tree looking straight out of a cartoon with its wide spread and exposing roots. Except take away the beauty from this tree and you'll understand why every local avoids this. Warning, the story is pretty explicit, so viewer discretion is advised. Legend goes that several years ago, a man assaulted and murdered a girl right underneath this tree. After some research, this turned out to be a true story and has a lot more disturbing details that I couldn't mention on this video. However, after her death, people in the area started to hear noticeable crying coming from underneath the tree, but when they went to investigate, nothing was there. And to make things even more spookier, just days after this, the man who murdered the girl was executed by hanging on the same tree. So best believe there's more than one ghost sitting underneath it. At number 8 spot, we have the ghosts of Mount Everest. Being the tallest mountain in the world, people are bound to come in thousands to conquer the challenge. However, with a fatality rate at 14%, many climbers have not been able to finish their trip and their bodies still lie on this mountain to this day. So best believe after seeing these bodies and hearing their horrific stories, some ghost stories in Everest are bound to pop up. On your journey to the top, chances are you'll come across the 3,000 corpses that lie on the mountain to this day. One is a man known as Green Boots, as seen on the body at the time of his death, but his real name is Swang Baljor. Many climbers claim to see the apparition of this climber with green boots encourage them to push through the journey. Being at such an extreme height, many mountaineers suffer from altitude sickness and causes many to see vivid hallucinations, with the majority of them claiming to see ghosts all around them, and I'm not surprised. At number 7 spot, we have the Royal Palace of Nepal. On June 1st, 2001, one of the worst royal massacres occurred at the Royal Palace of Nepal. The deaths included 9 members of the royal family, including King Birendra and Queen Aishwarya. The culprit turned out to be the son and crown prince, Dipendra, who is said to have opened fire on the palace grounds when a party was happening. He shot his own dad, his own mother, and his own siblings. And since we're talking about a monarchy, and also because he killed all other lines of succession, he was appointed king, but only for a temporary time as he was in a coma since the attack due to shooting himself. Shortly after the massacre, locals around the palace begin to hear sounds of screaming, shouting, and the most notorious sound they would document is the sound of gunshots. They claim it was the gunshots from the massacre, and its haunting sounds are still trapped in the palace to this day. At number 6 spot, we have the Lakey dance. To educate y'all in Nepal culture, one of their infamous traditions is this Lakey dance. This is considered the dance of a demon, and although the name is pretty daunting, the reason they do this is not. So Laki is the term they use to denote carnivorous demons, so the story goes that Laki fell in love with a Nepalese girl. So in an attempt to win her heart, the demon decides to take human form to see his lover, but when he decides to enter the city, everyone decides to capture him, well, because he is a demon. So the king meets with his demon and makes a pretty generous offer. He proposes that he gives the demon a place in the city only if he promises to protect the children from tragedies and other supernatural entities. So the demon agreed, hence the dance. The costumes they use are both beautiful and pretty terrifying, depending on how you want to look at it. And one odd thing about this tradition dance, opposed to other traditional dances, is that this dance is not taught, but it's said that the dancers have it inherited through their genes. This also causes many others to believe that the demon is in fact controlling them, but in the end of the day, he means well, so it's okay. Right in the hump of our list, we have Devghat. Devghat is a religious Hindu site located in Chichwan, also known as Aryaga. On July 12, 2009, police discovered several human skulls and bones scattered all around the area. The case remains unsolved to this day. Well, it's because the grounds were formerly used for cremation. Groups like the Agoris and Tantrics come here to do some questionable rituals as well, which only adds to the local belief that this place is truly haunted. Specifically, locals claim to see around 4 to 5 women apparitions approaching the river by night. They appear to be dancing, but they're floating above the ground. The craziest thing about this is that they only start this dance by lighting themselves on fire, and only when they are completely engulfed in flames is when they'll begin their dance. And people claim to see their dance daily. At number 4 spot, we have Mugling and Naryangat. If you want to to take a hike in Nepal, this place is definitely a must with their stunning waterfalls and untouched nature. Except despite this beauty, locals warn tourists to not travel down the roads nearby at night. This is because many have reported hitchhiking ghosts who disappear shortly after being picked up. As well, they also claim to see apparitions running in front of their car, which only causes a lot more accidents in the area. Police have already discovered several human bodies in the area, with many of the cases still unresolved. This led many to believe in the supernatural, but many others propose a serial killer in the area, and it would make sense. But two theories, two bad options. In the past, the towns around the highway were just deserted fishing regions, which was a dangerous place for crime and violence. The spirits found on the highway were said to be tortured souls whose remains might lie unattended in the woods still. At number 3 spot, we have the Kya. A Kya is translated into a ghostly figure, but ghosts in Nepal are seen as something different than we see in the Western world. In Nepal, it's widely believed that every house contains a Kya and their backstory. Like any ghost, these Kya can either be good or they can be bad. The good will obviously protect the family, the home, and your luck, but the bad ones will do everything in their power to destroy your family and ultimately every single one of your lives. You'll know if you've seen a Kya because they are pretty distinct. They appear as a slender skeleton, so in a way they act as a poltergeist because you can see them the whole time instead of them just being invisible like any other ghost. It's believed they like to pull pranks like throwing objects around the house and throwing blankets off of you, and in some cases they will try to scare the family so bad that they will choose to leave the house completely, leaving the Kya all alone in the house. Although you can see this ghost, the majority of people will never actually know if they have a Kya in their place, and only you'll know if you fetch it out and seek one. Maybe you'll have one, but who knows. At number 2 spot with the Bokshi. Nepal legend says that witchcraft is widely practiced in remote areas in Nepal, except at this time their witch description was far from accurate. Basically, any woman who had something bad to say or raised her voice at the patriarchy would be considered a witch or a Bokshi. The problem with Bokshi is that it has become so extreme that women are being murdered in the name of this specific ritual and are forced to become a ghost, where they will be lost and seen roaming around the streets looking for answers. Even to this day, people are getting accused of being witches. Am I being confused, or am I in the Salem witch trial still? Because why are people still believing in this stuff? Just for excuse to execute women. I will never get it, and good for girls for haunting the streets for this one, because this one is kind of reasonable in my opinion. At number 1 spot, we have the Sundarijal. Located nearby Kathmandu is a river that is nowhere near your regular rivers back at home. Back in the day, up until now, the river has been mainly used as a source of drinking water, but the fact many locals claim that the river is haunted has led many people to avoid a necessity like water. The river runs through a rainforest, which is said to have restless souls hidden inside of it. As well, many have said that even touching the river can lead to your doom. Witnesses have seen locals and visitors reaching the river's edge only to tumble over and drown shortly after, and for some statistics, at least one person loses their life in this very river every single year. Now, as the years go by, the body count begins to rise up, causing more and more restless spirits. It could almost be said that this river is the closest thing to nature's own human sacrifice. At number 10 spot, we have the Krasu. Can't lie, when I first looked at this creature, I didn't know what to think. The Krasu is found and talked about all over Southeast Asia, including Thailand. It appears as a beautiful young woman, except it's missing a significant amount of body parts. The Krasu is only made up of a head with her internal organs hanging down from her neck. So as you would imagine, probably the most terrifying thing to see in real life. In Thailand legend, it said a Khmer princess became a Krasu after she was executed by burning, all because she tried to marry a person of lower status. So before the execution, the princess hired a sorceress to cast a spell on her, except the fire had already burned her entire body except for her head, which is why the Krasu appears the way it does. The spell was so powerful, however, it gave her new life, except only in this terrifying form. Now the Krasu flies around with a never-ending thirst for blood to drink and raw flesh to devour. So for the first time ever, avoid this beautiful woman. At number 9 spot, we have Thawi Watana Deserted House. This is a supposed cursed house where everyone who entered the house would be met with a terrible fate. In the Thawi Watana district of Bangkok, rumor has it that in 2015, a group of early teenagers entered the home. They were just out partying, so they entered the home high on alcohol and other narcotics. The reason they entered the house was because locals had already claimed that the house was haunted, so the boys decided to go check on it for themselves. This ended up being a very terrible decision later on. It said that whoever entered the house will have one of the home spirits attached to them forever. It wasn't until 3 months after, when 2 of the boys were fatally wounded in a motorcycle accident. Then a year later, a 3rd boy was caught also in a fatal accident. Then in the next year, 2 more of the boys lost their lives in a house fire. The odd thing about all these deaths was that the witnesses claimed that they saw a woman in white sitting on the backs of the motorcycles before their fatal accidents and before the house fire. Witnesses also claimed to see a woman in white entering the house before it burned down. Number 8 spot, we have the Jar Shuam Ashram. At the Ashram Chuan inside Thailand, there are literally hundreds of these statues scattered all around the property. These elaborate statues were created by one single shaman. This was no regular shaman, however. This shaman specialized in the dark arts and sorcery. So when he was alive, he performed rituals in which human remains such as ash, bone, hair, and skin would be mixed in with the concrete and be used to make these statues. After the shaman passed away, the ashram was left abandoned and the statues were left to be consumed by the forest around it. Locals avoid going to this ashram after dark because this is when the most activity happens with these statues. Some claim to hear the statues talk to one another while others see them fully move around. Regardless, seeing these statues that are just mixed in with human remains would be a terrifying thought, not only to see but just to think about. At number 7, we have the Kortizon Graveyard. In the western region of Thailand lies this infamous graveyard. The name I mentioned is not the actual name of the place, but after I mention some points, you'll understand why I changed it. Throughout the years, there's been numerous stories that this building was used as a brothel. Tragically, the women who were hired here were basically forced into adult work, and on top of that, they lived in these tiny rooms and were forced to take part with dozens of men. This is just a horrible thought beyond imagination. If the women said no or disobeyed, they were assaulted and left malnourished. So this is why this place got its name, because inside are the countless bodies of women and babies who were tragically left to die. Nowadays, it remains deserted for good reason, but if you go near the area at night, many report hearing constant screams and cries for help that grow louder and louder. At number 6 spot, we have the disappearance of Jim Thompson. Jim Thompson was an American businessman who came to Thailand and helped revitalize the Thai silk industry in the 1950s and 60s. So you can say he had a lot of power and influence in the area. He eventually built a house in Thailand filled with artifacts and various other Thailand charms. He was also loved by many locals and flourishing the Thai industry until one day in 1967, he was away in Cameron Highlands in Malaysia. Then, following an Eastern church service, Jim Thompson suddenly disappeared out of nowhere. This caused a 500-man grand-scale search for Jim, including the Thai army and Malaysian police force. After months of searching and the worldwide attention, Jim was declared dead in 1974 despite there being no trace or forensic evidence of him whatsoever. So did Jim just vanish out of thin air, or were there some greedy businessman looking to eradicate their competition? We'll never know. Right in the hump for our list, we have Wat Sathhat. The Wat Sathhat is a Buddhist temple located in Bangkok, Thailand. This temple was built all the way back in 1807 under King Rama I, so best believe it went through countless decades and countless leaders. At the time it was built, many people were told stories about the undead. Specifically in the temple, the undead were said to appear in the front of the temple's doors, resembling a thin-bodied ghost with a scary howling cry. This ghost is known as the Preta, and it was used in many religions to show someone suffering greater than humans at an extreme level of hunger and thirst. So I don't know if this ghost serves as a reminder for us to be grateful for our nourishment, or is it just another one of those ghosts that haunted this place? Who knows? At number 4 spot, we have the Bioke Sky Hotel. Located in what was once the tallest building in Bangkok, the Bioke Sky Hotel is one of the highest hotels in Southeast Asia. It towers over much of the city at 88 stories tall. However, in 2012, there was a tragic accident during construction of the tower whereby 3 workers plummeted to their deaths. Perhaps enraged by the unsafe equipment and working practices, the souls are now said to haunt the high-class hotel. Guests and staff members alike have reported a variety of strange happenings, including things mysteriously moving and creepy shadows. Even websites like TripAdvisor and Google Reviews also talk about many of the supernatural encounters they had in the hotel. These reviews suggest that guests report poltergeist activity, which include having their items moved around the rooms, shadowy figures in the dark corners of the rooms, and having the feeling of being watched and not alone. I know it doesn't make sense financially, but I feel like they should just close down a hotel after there's been more than a few deaths occurring, because I swear every hotel is haunted nowadays. At number 3 spot, with the Bang Phu Shoe Hotel. There is a certain shoe factory that nobody dares to walk in to this day. In Samut Prakan lies this now abandoned shoe factory. Why is it abandoned? Well, because back in the day, the factory suffered a freak accident that led many people to their deaths and injuries of many more workers. Instead of shutting down the factory, the greedy owner decided to keep it operational very soon after. Eventually, employees began to leave after reporting that they have encountered the angered spirits of their fellow workers. After many complaints were made about the factory, and when the workers started to desert the place completely, the owner decided to take his own life inside of the factory. To this day, the ghost stories that surround Bang Phu Shoe Factory, as I mentioned, have caused no one to step foot inside. Some locals say they occasionally get the whiff of newly burnt embers, shadowed with the screams of workers still trying to find their way out. At number 2 spot, we have Phi Phlong. Be cautious of who you see during the day, as they may morph into a ghost at night. Phi Phlong, a foul-smelling spirit, appears as a normal person during the day and as a ghost at night. The odd things it feasts on, such as frogs, give Phi Phlong its pungent odor. This creature is so feared that if locals even hear a frog close by, they will purposely rush inside of their homes in fear of bumping into the Phi Phlong. This stinky ghost is harmless until threatened, which means you can end up like a Phi Phlong if he attacks and you ingest his saliva. I mean, just by looking at this creature, there's nothing good about them, but I guess they don't randomly attack, which is kind of a good thing. Kind of. So for another weird thing these guys do is that they will throw banana stalk cut from the widow water shoulder poles over the roof of the victim's house. This will cause the family of the house to suffer bad luck and other tragedies in the following years. All the way at a number 1 spot with the Khao Lak. Khao Lak is a beautiful seaside town in Phang Nga province. In 2004, it was all but destroyed by a devastating tsunami. While many places in several countries suffered casualties and damage after the huge earthquake in the Indian Ocean, Khao Lak saw Thailand's greatest loss of life. It is estimated that at least 4,000 people perished on December 26, 2004. The resort has risen from the debris with homes, hotels, and businesses gradually being rebuilt and repaired. Many Thai people believe that the coastal area is haunted by the tsunami's victims, and ghosts have reported strange occurrences in many of the local hotels. Coming in at a number 10 spot, we have the elevator game. The elevator game is a mysterious and potentially dangerous ritual that is said to bring you to another world. This game has its origins in Japan and is played by entering an elevator in a public building with at least 10 floors. The player must press specific buttons in a specific order without anyone entering or even leaving the elevator in order to reach this other world. In the other world, electronics do not work, the lights are off, and all that can be seen from the windows is a red cross in the distance. To return back to the original world, the players must repeat the sequence of button presses and be very vigilant of their surroundings. The player must be careful not to look at the woman who enters the elevator on the 5th floor, as she is not human. If someone enters or even leaves the elevator during the ritual, the players must start over. And you must be wondering what the specific ritual is, but if you guys actually want to know about that, search it up, because I'm not going to say it for you guys because I don't want you guys doing this. Because for those who have played, it is said that if they faint or lose consciousness during the ritual, they may wake up in their own home. But they must be careful to examine their surroundings, as it may not be the same home they left. It is important to not attempt this ritual too many times as well, as it can lead to an accidental slipping between both worlds. And it's also worth mentioning that if the woman does not enter the elevator or the players do not reach the 10th floor, they should immediately return to the 1st floor and completely end the game. At a number 9 spot, we have the Rokurokubi, the long-necked demon. The legend of the Rokurokubi is a supernatural creature from Japanese mythology that originated during the Edo period, which is 1603 to 1867. The Rokurokubi is a beautiful woman by day, but at night she undergoes a metamorphosis where her neck extends and she begins to hunt. Some versions of this legend says that this creature can be recognized by small white marks on their neck, or even by the way they sleep with their head far from their body. But in reality, when I see photos of this, all I can think is, if they got a long neck, they're probably this creature. According to folklore, however, there are different explanations for the origin of this creature. Some believe they were once Buddhists who broke the religion's principles and were then cursed as punishment, while other people see the transformation as a supernatural expression of the person's desires. There are also legends that suggest they are Oni, which are these Japanese demons seeking revenge or even simply just playing tricks on humans. And it's also worth mentioning that this creature comes in many different forms, with female ones attacking men and male ones attacking women. The Nukekubi is one of the most dangerous forms, however, known for its detached head that just flies around and attacks its prey. At a number 8 spot, we have Hitobashira. Hitobashira, also known as human pillars, is a custom of human sacrifice that was once practiced in Japan. It involved burying a victim alive under or near large-scale buildings such as dams, bridges, and castles. The practice was believed to appease the gods and protect the structure from natural disasters and enemy attacks. The tradition of human sacrifice in Japan dates back to the construction of aristocratic tombs in ancient times. The use of human pillars persisted in various parts of Japan until the 16th century. Legend has it that the Maruoka Castle, one of the oldest surviving castles in Japan, was built with the help of a human pillar named Oshizu. When the stone wall of the castle kept collapsing, a vassal suggested the use of a human sacrifice, Oshizu, who is this one-eyed woman living in poverty who volunteered to even become this human pillar in the first place. But she did this under one condition, and that one condition being that one of her sons was turned into a samurai. She was buried under the central pillar of the castle keep, and the construction was successfully completed. However, her son was not made a samurai, and thus her spirit has caused moat to overflow with spring rain every single year, and some people even report to see her ghost when they enter and visit this castle.
As a result, people erected a small tomb to soothe her spirit, and a poem was even handed down about the rain caused by the tears of Ushizu's sorrow. It is speculated that the instability of the walls of the Maraoka Castle was due to the design of the castle in the first place, which is more indicative of earlier fortresses. On the other hand, the Matsu Castle is also rumored to have been constructed on human sacrifice, buried under the castle stone walls. The victim was a beautiful young maiden who was fond of dancing and is referred to as the Maiden of the Matsu. After the castle was built, a law was passed forbidding any girl to dance in the streets of Matsu because the hill Oshiruyama would shudder and the castle would shake from top to bottom. Although this practice has not been continued, it's just crazy to think that this was actually done, and some of the pillars in Japan actually contain real human sacrifice. At our number 7 spot, we have the Kisaragi Station. In 2004, a 2chan user named Hasumi posted on a thread asking for help because she got on the wrong train at Shin Hamatsu Station. This was rather strange because she usually caught the same train after work, and trains in the station only go in one direction. She started getting really anxious because she remembered the stops only being a few minutes between each station, but on this specific train ride, they were just much longer. They even went through a tunnel, but her usual line didn't go through any sort of tunnel. She walked to the front car to ask the conductor for help, but the curtain was closed and no one answered. She then knocked on the door, but that's when the train suddenly stopped at Kisaragi Station. As she left the train, she was filled with huge anxiety and fear, but as she tried to go back, the train door shut on her. As all this was happening, she was messaging people on this discussion board on 4chan about the station, but when they all replied, they had said that no such station existed in Japan. She decided to exit the station and walk back along the tracks, even back through the tunnel she had gone through under earlier. She reported strange sounds like drums in the distance, and even a voice telling her that walking on the tracks is extremely dangerous. As she grew more afraid, she turned back to go around, but she saw an old man with one leg, which then slowly disappeared right after. When she finally got out of the tunnel, a man came up offering help and to drive her to the nearest station. This is when she posted on the thread for the very last time, saying that the man was muttering to himself, then her phone died, and she was never heard from the thread again. At our number 6 spot, we have the 1932 Shirokiya department store. On December 16, 1932, tragedy struck the Shirokiya department store in Japan during their year-end Christmas theme sale. The festive decorations of the season turned into a nightmare as a fire broke out at the toy section just a few minutes before the store was about to open. The fire quickly spread to floors 4 and 8, filling the staircase with smoke and cutting off major escape routes. This left many shoppers and employees stranded on the upper floors, desperate for a way to find safety. Some of those who were trapped made makeshift ropes from clothing or curtains and climbed down to safety. Others were not so lucky. They instead fell to their deaths or even suffocated in the smoke-filled building. In total, 14 people lost their lives and 67 were injured in the Shirokiya department store fire. In the aftermath of the fire, stories and legends began to circulate about the tragedy. One particularly interesting legend relates to the traditional dress of the saleswomen in the store. At the time, it was customary for women who wore traditional kimonos to go without panties. According to this urban legend, some of the saleswomen in kimonos who were trapped on the upper floors chose not to jump the safety nets that had been set up below because they were just ashamed to not be seen below without underwear. While there is no real proof that this legend actually existed, it is said to have led on to an increase in the popularity of Western style panties in Japan, which is both odd and kind of terrifying at the same time. I don't know what to think. In the hub for our list, we have the ghost taxi passengers. After the devastating 3/11 earthquake and tsunami that hit the northeastern Japan coast, sightings of yurei or ghosts have increased drastically in cities like Ishinomaki in Miyagi Prefecture. As these spirits have not been properly put to rest, some may have not even been aware that they are dead and are often searching for a way home. As a result, taxi drivers all over this place have long been subject to ghostly encounters in the form of passengers trying to go home or to a very specific place. This has almost become a norm for taxi drivers around Japan to be asked if they had ever had a ghostly passenger before. Tohoku Gaon University conducted a study called the Awakened Spiritual Earthquake Studies that involved interviews with more than 100 Ishinomaki taxi drivers who had supernatural encounters. Many drivers reported picking up passengers who seemed to be wet or wearing winter coats in the summer, months after the disaster in the cold months of March. Most drivers reported running the meter and having to pay the fee for the vanished passenger. One particular driver reported a chilling story about a man in winter clothing whom whom he picked up in the summer, who asked to be taken to an address that had been destroyed. The driver asked if he was sure that that was the address, as it was just a vacant lot, to which the passenger replied by asking, "Am I dead?" Number 4, the Red Room Curse. The Red Room Curse is a Japanese urban legend that originated from an interactive Adobe Flash horror animation uploaded to GeoCities in the late 1990s. The legend tells the story of a pop-up ad that appears on the victim's computer screen, displaying a black text that reads, "Do you like?" on a red background. After trying to close the pop-up, it reappears with a new message that reads, "Do you like the Red Room?" before the screen just turns completely red, displaying a list of names of the Red Room victims. This is when the victim senses a mysterious presence behind them before losing consciousness and later being found dead in a room with blood-painted walls. The legend gained notoriety in 2004 when a 12-year-old schoolgirl was murdered by an 11-year-old classmate known as Girl A in Sasebo. It was reported that Girl A was a fan of the Red Room Curse animation and had the video bookmarked on her computer at the time of her death. And of course, this incident led to widespread discussion and fear for this curse. Then in 2016, a short film titled The Red Room Curse was released and was inspired by this urban legend, of course. The film brings the legend to life and is sure to give anyone who watches it a chilling experience. So if you guys kind of want to know what this Red Room is about, watch this film because it'll give you all the insights. Number 3, the Ushi-Oni. The world of Japanese mythology is full of terrifying creatures, but none are quite as fearsome as the Ushi-Oni, also known as the Ox Demon. This class of monster is found near bodies of water and is known for its savage and cruel nature. Although there are different types of Ushi-Oni, they all share similar traits that make them unmistakable. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about these monsters is their insatiable appetite for human flesh. Then on top of that, they breathe toxic poison, making them even more deadly. The Ushi-Oni is not to be trifled with as well, and many people who have encountered one have not lived to tell the tale. It is worth mentioning that the Ushi-Oni is not always a solitary creature either. They are known to work together with other yokai or supernatural creatures such as the Nura-Onna and the Iso-Onna. These yokai use their charms to lure unsuspecting men towards the water, where the Ushi-Oni is waiting to pounce and make a meal of its victims. The appearance of the Ushi-Oni is quite unique and interesting as well. Much of them resemble an ox from the head up, but their body is a demonic horror. However, there are many variations on this theme, including one with a spider-like body, another one with a cat-like body, and even one with the body of a kimono-clad human. Pretty terrifying. Number 2, the cursed Kleenex commercial. In 1986, Kleenex released a commercial in Japan that sparked a series of disturbing urban legends. The ad featured a woman in white and an ogre-looking child sitting on a pile of hay and enjoying Kleenex tissues, all while singing the song "It's a Fine Day" by Jane and Barden played in the background. Almost instantly after the commercial was aired, TV stations and Kleenex corporate allegedly began receiving complaints about the ad, with many people finding unsettling. Some claim that the entire film crew met untimely deaths in freak accidents following this, while others said that the child in the commercial had passed away immediately after filming this. There are also rumors that the actress Kaiko Matsuzaka had either passed away or even been committed to a psychiatric hospital. Others claim that when the ad came on at night, the singer's voice in the commercial transformed from that of a young soprano to a raspy old woman's. And the ad was so unsettling to the public that Kleenex eventually pulled it off air and replaced it with a completely different one. At our number 1 spot, we have the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it, except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it's a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as the Shokuonbutsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and these are the bodies of the priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All of these mummies we see are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about a body that being fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy. The process for the mummification would actually be very intense as well, and for the first 1,000 days, and it would go a little something like this. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diet to a bare minimum in order to fit in this thing. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, many would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation in order to reach enlightenment.
Starting off this countdown at number 10, Tag. The opening scene of Tag is one of the most shockingly horrific moments in Japanese cinema, and is a perfect setup for the absolute carnage and confusion that follows. A young girl called Mitsuko finds herself battling between alternate realities. each with a unique set of horrors she must face. There is little to no explanation as the audience gets thrusted into a never-ending spiral of danger alongside Mitsuko, which makes the movie a heart-racing watch. Despite the endless world of horror seen in Tag, it is the true reality revealed at the very end that is the most terrifying. Now, if this movie name sounds familiar, it might be because the movie trended on TikTok around when it came out with the famously terrifying bus scene. We can unfortunately only show a short clip because it's from a movie, but does that scene not just give you goosebumps? Like, holy, talk about intense. Now at number 9, The Ghost of the Hunchback. Hajime Sato's 1965 Toei movie Hayden Samushi Atoko goes by several names in the West: The Ghost of the Hunchback, House of Terrors, and Satan's Pit. Regardless, they are all the same terrifying movie. The Ghost of the Hunchback is about a hunchbacked caretaker who presides over a forlorn mansion inhabited by the ghost of his previous masters. An unbelieving trio, a doctor, his assistant, and his niece, fail to heed the caretaker's warnings and are slaughtered horribly by the jealous occupants. Now moving on to number 8, The Curse. Fans of the found footage style horror need to look no further than Nori or The Curse. The film opens with an introduction to paranormal investigator Masafumi Kobayashi, who has disappeared during the process of making a documentary titled The Curse. The documentary then begins to play as viewers are left to uncover the secrets he left behind. Seemingly disconnected mysteries that involve strange and creepy events are tied together by the discovery of an old ritual that summons a demon named Kagutaba. Noroi is said to be disturbingly realistic, which makes it all the more terrifying. I found out the movie is free to watch on YouTube, but that's if you dare to watch this horrifying film. But it can also be found with better quality on Shudder. Now at number 7, House. The bizarre horror that is House is a hyperactive fever dream that takes place in the most deranged, creepy, haunted house to ever grace the big screen. Nobuhiko Obayashi's twisted fairy tale tells the story of 7 schoolgirls on a summer trip to an aunt's remote estate. The fantasy-like beginning takes a turn so deformed and uncanny that it's difficult to adequately describe. House is overflown with unbelievable scenes, people say. The scenes that take place in the haunted house are as gruesome, but they are just as exciting to watch. The movie came out in 1977. And nowadays, watching older horror movies don't really seem that scary because of all the CGI and everything we have now, but after seeing a 5-second clip of this movie, you're sure to have goosebumps. This movie is one of the most inventive and colorful horror movies to ever exist and truly must be seen to be believed. Now at number 6, Sadeko vs. Keiko. Yes, the vengeful ghosts of Ring and The Grudge are iconic, but if you've ever wondered which ghost is stronger, well, here's a movie that brings them together for the ultimate face-off and answers just that. We follow Natsumi, a woman who watches Sadeko's cursed videotape and realizes it's only a matter of time before Sadeko kills her. She tries to save herself by pinning Sadeko against Keiko, a malevolent spirit who resides in a haunted house, hoping they would kill each other and end the curse. The film takes the best parts of the two movies' antagonists and blends them together, capturing the dread and hostility perfectly. And funny enough, the movie seems very similar to Ring. Well, based on the trailer, that is, because I haven't seen the movie, but after seeing the spooky trailer, I might just have to give it a watch. It's creepy and fun and totally worth the watch, and the movie can be found on Amazon Prime, YouTube, and Shudder. Halfway at number 5, Uzumaki. Based on the horror mangaka Junji Ito's spine-chilling manga of the same name, this film's concept is just as eccentric as it is creepy. It's about a cursed town whose inhabitants are haunted by ominous spirals that drive the townspeople mad, and sometimes to the point where they take their own life. Our protagonists race to break the curse, but can it really be stopped? The strengths here are the ghastly body horror, the lack of standard backstory, lending to the sense of hopelessness, and the nightmarish, surreal imagery. A man crawls into a washing machine, people turn into snails, and your fingertips have spirals. Even the sky is cursed with spiral-like clouds. This is certainly not a town I'd personally want to live in, and based on the trailer, it looks very freaky and cryptic looking. At number 4, Dark Water. This is a classic that forever remains underrated and one of people's personal favorites. Yoshimi is a single mother in the midst of a divorce. To prove she is able to take care of her daughter, she moves the pair into an old rundown apartment building, where the haunting horrors begin. A dripping leak forms on the ceiling, black here appears in the tap water, and an extremely creepy child ghost. It's chilling with a touching mother-daughter relationship at its heart, but don't let that fool you because this movie is truly terrifying. And fun fact, this is based on a novel by Koji Suzuki, who is also the author of the Ring novels, and was directed by Hideo Nakata, who also directed the unbelievably famous and scary movie Ring. Some even say it's Japan's saddest horror movie. Here at number 3, Corpse Party. The movie Corpse Party is based on the horror video game series of the same name. There's also an anime and manga too. It's set in a haunted school and is incredibly dark and blood-curdling, which is right up the alley for most big horror fans. It has everything: blood, gore, mystery, and ghosts. A group of high school students perform a charm called Sachiko Ever After to ensure they'll remain friends forever. Instead, they find themselves transported to a haunted elementary school with resentful spirits and Sachiko herself, who's actually the psychopathic ghost of a little girl in a red dress. There's also an equally freaky sequel called Corpse Party Book of Shadows. Now coming in at number 2, Ring-Yu. Ring-Yu is a cult horror film of legendary status. Its prominence as one of the best horror films to come from Japan has not wavered over for more than 2 decades since its release. Ring-Yu subjects viewers to a deep-seated psychological attack that leaves them with a mysterious and lasting sense of doom. The story itself is deceptively unassuming. Watch a cursed videotape and die a gruesome death 7 days later. It's a masterful way director Hideo Nakata cloaks Ring-Yu in growing dread that makes it a superior film. The frightening jump cuts become implanted in your mind, and the metallic screeching will ring in your ears for days after watching. Of course, this one is good, but for me, I really like the newer remakes of Ring, but still, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend this one. Now coming in at number 1, The Grudge. It's impossible to talk about Japanese horror movies without mentioning Ju-on, or The Grudge. The movie is disconnecting thanks to its non-linear narrative, but viewers can expect to encounter 2 terrifying, restless spirits ready to torment anyone that enters their home. Everything about the film is sure to inflict sheer terror. The Grudge draws on horrors from both the real and paranormal, since the terrible crimes committed become the cause of the restlessly horrifying supernatural events. The creeping sense of a foreboding that builds throughout the movie lingers well after watching. I chose to put this at number 1 because I'm a big horror fan, but most horror movies don't actually scare me. But this one actually kept me up at night. I swear all I could hear when I tried to fall asleep was that creepy noise.